What's up, everybody? This is Chris Sarai bringing another edition of the Card Concierge Show Week in Review. On today's show, we're going to talk about UFC Fight Night 246 that happened last night in Edmonton, Canada. We're also going to talk about the IU football team and as it rose to a 9-0 record. And last but not least, we're going to talk about Ethiopia as it decides that it is going to stop the import of vehicles. All right, so first up, we're going to check out UFC Fight Night 246 that happened last night over in Edmonton, Canada, and a couple of fantastic fights, a lot of unanimous decisions, so not a lot of knockouts. You know how we feel about that. But as it pertains to the top three fights, we did get to see Brendan Ribeiro defeat KO Machado, and it was a really back and forth event. Not a ground and pound, just a lot of back and forth. Boxing, as it were. It's more of a boxing match than anything else. You know, a lot of jabbing, couple of punches thrown here and there, but Ribeiro did start getting him in the later rounds. Got some good punches in. Really wasn't an exciting fight, but it ended up being a nice split decision for Ribeiro. So great fight, I thought. Not as exciting as we like our fights to be, but great fight all around. And the co-main event was Erin Blanchfield against our favorite Rose Namajunas. And once again, a great fight. Blanchfield was pretty all over Rose. You know, we're great Rose fans over here, but she wasn't the Rose that we'd like to see. Blanchfield was pretty much dominating this fight, stayed on top of her pretty much the whole time, throwing some great shots, throwing some great kicks. Rose just didn't have the punching power that she standardly has when we see Rose in these bouts. But, you know, it was a good back and forth, but Erin Blanchfield did pull it out. It was a unanimous decision, and I thought it was a good fight. I know Rose will bounce back here in the future, but Rose did come out on the losing end of the stick last night. And the main event, Brandon Moreno against Amir Albazi. Amir Albazi. Great fight. Really back and forth. Albazi really showing why he was undefeated. Moreno really showing why he's one of the top tier fighters out there. You know, there was a eye poke in the later rounds that put a stop to the fight a little bit, but you know, a lot of bloody action. A lot of back and forth. Really great fight. But, of course, for Albazi, if you let it go to the judges, you know, you're bound to get results like this. But end up being a unanimous decision for Brandon Moreno. Great fight by him. Great back and forth. I really liked it. You know, wasn't one of the best nights of UFC that I've seen in a long time. But it was great stuff. So, great stuff. So, let's keep going. Next, we're going to talk about the IU football team. Now, of course, I talk about this a lot. I'm from Indiana. I went to Indiana University. And even though it has a football team, and it had a football team forever, it's never been a dominant football team. No national championships. No really dominant coaches. Coach Mallory was fantastic, but they have a great new coach in Signetti. He's doing great things. They're 9-0. A lot of great players. So we're gonna watch Signetti do his post game press conference. You know. All right, Kurt Signetti of the IU football team as they go 9-0, beating Michigan State last night. Let's check it out.
Good road win. Well, you know, now we can't say we're a team that never trailed before because we got down 10-0. So, and now we all know how we're going to respond when we're down. I probably won't get that question Thursday night. Michigan State came out and really made some impressive plays on offense, throwing and catching, and we responded with a nice touchdown drive. And then we got a couple turnovers on defense, which were huge. And, you know, we were making plays on offense, timely plays. And then our kicking game was really starting to contribute. Our punt return game, we had a couple of nice returns, and then we blocked the punt and put a lot of pressure on them. They muffed the punt, which led to points. And it was a pretty dominant win, really, 47 straight points on the road against, I think, a good football team. And we took the crowd out of the game, certainly. And, it's a good win, and we'll enjoy it for 24. Staff will get to enjoy it for about 12. And, it'll be a nice trip home.
I know you talk about just keeping this team focused, but as this season goes on, as you face different challenges, as I would imagine to some extent the stakes grow a little bit around you, what is it about this group that is able to block things out, is able to just, when you talk about enjoy it for 24 hours, move on to the next one, just constantly compartmentalize and succeed the way that it has?
Well, I think we're all on the same page. I think they're buying into the main thing, how we approach the main thing, what's important to us and how we want to play. And they're older. They got good character. There's good leadership on this team. They're hungry for success. A lot of these guys came from, G5 level. Even the nose guard, came from Kent. Got some guys that came from P5, Wake Forest, Texas Tech, Wisconsin. We've got a good leader at quarterback. And we've got a lot of guys that can be good leaders. We're balanced on offense. We spread the ball around. We got a lot of guys that can make plays. And defensively, we create havoc up front. We swarm the ball. And, they got a little edge about them. The whole team got a little edge. They're relentless. So they continue to play very consistently. It's never perfect. And they're never satisfied. Never satisfied.
All right, so that, my friends, is Kurt Signetti, the IU football coach, and they beat Michigan State handily yesterday, 9-0 record, and it's a great thing. It's a new thing for IU football, so that in itself makes it a great thing. It's great for the students and fans of IU football to have a great season to start off with 9-0, and to do it. To be totally honest with you, it's perfect that it happens now when they've expanded the playoff situation to include 12 teams. So it bodes well for them to have an opportunity to make the playoffs and to vie for a national championship. So it's all positive. It's all great things. I am very happy about it. I continue to watch. I'm going to continue to watch. They have some fantastic players. You got quarterback Curtis Rourke and that dominant running back Justin Ellison. That wide receiver, that one of the top wide receivers in the country, Elijah Surratt. And they just have a dominant defense. So it's just all around great things for IU. I hope everything continues to go well. Of course, they have the big games of the Michigans of the world and the Ohio States of the world coming up. So once we start getting to those games, we'll really have an idea on where their future lies this season. So, we're just going to stay positive. We're going to enjoy the 9-0 record. We're going to hope that it continues and this team continues to show great resilience. And they continue to be relentless like the coach says. So, fantastic stuff. Let's keep it going. Last but not least, we're going to talk about Ethiopia. We're going to talk about how the EV market has started to affect them. Now, we don't usually talk about other countries and what's going on with them, but I think this was very important to bring to you guys because it shows how this EV situation is affecting the world and how other countries are moving around when it comes to this EV stuff. So let's check that out real quick, and then I'm going to get y'all up out of here.
In a bold move, the Ethiopian government has issued a sweeping ban on the importation of privately owned gasoline-powered vehicles, allowing only the importation of electric cars for individual use. The decision, which was announced by Ethiopia's transport minister, is driven by both the environmental and economic considerations and marks a significant shift in the country's automotive landscape.
Anyone who wishes to import any automobiles for private use will only be allowed to bring in electric vehicles. This is the decision of the government. The Transport and Logistics Ministry will from now on comply with this latest decree.
Ethiopian authorities believe the decision will reduce the country's dependence on fuel, which is exerting pressure on the limited foreign exchange as well as reduce carbon emissions. Data shows the Eastern African nation spends over $5 billion annually on petroleum imports. Most people we spoke to on the streets of the capital Addis Ababa, including car owners and auto experts, support this move.
To avoid environmental pollution as well as for the country's economic benefits, the electric cars policy is sound to me. I recently bought an electric car and I can tell you my thoughts on electric cars have changed for the better.
So the most important thing that he just said was it was important for the country, and that's what we're talking about. They're talking about, the fact that they have to import most of their petroleum, which is they have to import most of the gas that powers these combustible engine vehicles. So the thought process is that if we head straight into an EV situation and only import EV vehicles and stop our government's dependent on petroleum and gas coming in for these cars, then it will be better for our governments because we're not spending money to get this gas, and more money is staying with the government as it pertains to these vehicles and what we spend out in imports. Let's check it out.
As one may notice, Ethiopian roads are witnessing an increase in electric vehicles. The government's push has a lot to do with this growth. Both the price and the tax incentives are good for buyers. Electric cars are good for users as fuel prices continue to skyrocket. I believe more people will go electric in the future.
But not everyone believes the decision of the Ethiopian Transport and Logistics Ministry to block the importation of fuel-powered private cars is justified.
There are still a significant number of users who do not prefer electric cars in this country. The technology is relatively new to our country and the uncertainty is equally high. So I would say the government should allow the importation of both fuel-powered and electric vehicles into the country to accommodate the interests of all people.
Ethiopia boasts cheap electricity with some of the lowest purchase price in Africa. The country produced nearly 5,000 megawatts of electricity, and the figure is set to double with the entry of the Grand Renaissance Dam on the Nile. Authorities are optimistic that cheap power supply will motivate many to buy more electric cars. But for that to happen, motorists believe more infrastructure needs to be built.
I charge my car at home. So far it's working for me. But we need more charging stations to be built across major cities in the country. That will encourage people to choose electric vehicles.
The ban will not apply to fuel cars imported for public transportation. Officials say the groundbreaking policy will power Ethiopia's electric vehicles industry and position the country as a potential leader in the shift towards sustainable transportation in Africa. Grum Tala CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Now, why did I show you guys that? And the whole name of it is, by Ethiopian for me, is that this is just a move for Ethiopia to get away from using American products, using any products from any other country. But the key is that they're basing everything off of using EV vehicles. Now, Ethiopia doesn't have a EV automaker, so the majority of its EV vehicles, of course, are the Teslas and the BYDs, which are big sellers out in Ethiopia, and other small EV companies. So The push for Ethiopia to become a country that's based with electric vehicles is truly based on their desire to keep their money with Ethiopia. Now, you would say that's not particularly true because the EV vehicles are not made in Ethiopia, but the key is that Ethiopia is one of those countries that BYD is deciding that it is going to pursue building a plant at. So if BYD does decide, just like we're asking for America, to build a plant in Ethiopia, it would not be a problem for them to be a large consumer of BYD vehicles to the point where they become a country that is very proficient in electric vehicles and it does a good job of getting away from combustible vehicles so that they don't have to spend their money on petroleum and gases to run these vehicles. Now, this is not going to happen anytime in the near future because Ethiopia, just like America, is a place where the majority of vehicles on the road are still gas-powered vehicles. So it's going to be a slow process, but with the implementation of BYD building plants and shipping their EV vehicles over to Ethiopia, it won't be a hard process. It will be a process that will be helped with BYD as BYD still becomes a global, the top global EV sales company in the world. It would only help them with that. But for Ethiopia, what it will do is if BYD has a factory in Ethiopia or EV vehicles start to be produced in Ethiopia, it will be a process that will allow Ethiopia to, of course, keep more money in Ethiopia to build their infrastructure, to build their world base, and to make them a better country. So this is great things for Ethiopia. This is a great idea for Ethiopia because they keep their money there. They still build their infrastructure there. They still head towards a future that is less of a situation where, gas-powered vehicles are messing up the ozones and all that kind of crazy stuff like that there, which is something that all countries trying to do, specifically here in America. But Ethiopia wants to do it, and they still want to make sure that Ethiopia grows as it's being done. They talked about how Ethiopia has cheap electricity, and they're building more power plants and things of that nature. So they're continuing to build the infrastructure that will sustain a good EV base to the point where they can get rid of gas-powered vehicles. But of course, that will be a couple years away before most places lead to a world where there are predominantly EV vehicles on the road. That's not going to happen anytime soon anywhere, but in Ethiopia, that's what they're leading towards. And the basis for doing that is they want to keep their money there, keep their people buying from Ethiopia, even if the product is a BYD product. If it's being made in Ethiopia and Ethiopia is benefiting from it, that's the way to go. So the ultimate statement is that Ethiopia is trying to get away from the import world, and that is exactly what the U.S. should be doing too. We have to, just like them, to concentrate on not relying so much on imports, not relying on, like Ethiopia, relying on the import of petroleum. We have to stop relying on the import of everything. EV vehicles, steel, parts, all products that we're getting overseas that can be and are made in America that we can take benefit from in America. And if we do take benefit of it in America, it'll benefit America more. So Ethiopia is just saying that, hey, we need to stop importing all this petroleum. We need to concentrate on making us an EV place, and we have to build our infrastructure. And I hate to say it, but the U.S. should take a note from Ethiopia. All right, my friends, I'm out of here. I'm your guy, Chris Surratt. Thank you for tuning into a weekend review. A beautiful Sunday. My Bears is playing. It is time to go. And I'm out. Peace.